This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. All right, so the Browns have cut their roster down to 53. We're going to break down the 53-man roster. Who made the team? Who didn't? Did your favorite from the preseason make the team? So let's just jump into it. We're going to start with the offensive side of the ball. And some surprises here, but not really, right? We talked about this before. We felt like running back 3 was going to be, some guy that they liked in the draft a couple of years ago that they're going to pick up. And a lot of people pointed out in a Pierre Strong video that I predicted that's how the Browns going to do it. That's just kind of how Andrew Berry moves, right? I'm not I don't know what you would call it. I'm not from the future or anything like that. I just pay attention to the tendencies that the front office has had. And we have that luxury now because the Browns have had the same front office for a number of years that we know, okay, this is how they like to move. And honestly, they've had the same structure since DePodesta's been here, but really since the firing of John Dorsey, right? So that allows me to be a little bit more, read the tea leaves and be more accurate on these things because you can tell how they're going to move based on what they've done in the past, what their tendencies are. And if they need to replace a position like running back or backup quarterback or something like that, they always tend to go to these guys that they might have liked that went in the draft a couple of years ago that are available now. They like those reclamation projects because they feel like there's a lot of upside. You get somebody potentially still on their rookie deal. So again, let's go through the offensive 53-man roster. And also keep in mind, this roster is going to be in flux. This graphic is going to be outdated by like 7 o'clock. By the time this video uploads, somebody from this roster will probably be cut. Most definitely before tomorrow. Before the start of the game week next week, somebody going to get cut. And then we'll see who makes the practice squad and all that. So we're going to start here. No surprises at quarterback since they traded Josh Dobbs, Deshaun Watson, DTR. Those are going to be your 2 quarterbacks on the 53-man roster. We go to running back. Again, no surprises. They traded for Pierre Strong, so you knew he was going to make the team. Jerome Ford, Nick Chubb. Those are your 3 running backs, and you feel pretty good about that. Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong get a chance to establish themselves. And I know a lot of people wanted a veteran running back. I know a lot of people want a running back that they know to feel comfortable. But with running back, you just want somebody you feel good about or a prospect you feel good about because you feel like the job is simple enough with the offensive line that the Browns have for these guys to figure it out in a backup element, right? And I don't know who's going to initially get the backup job, Pierre Strong or Jerome Ford, but whoever does, they're not going to have that heavy of a workload. Then you have wide receiver, Elijah Moore, Amari Cooper, Marquise Goodwin made the 53 because he's back and active to play for week 1. Donovan Peoples-Jones, David Bell, Cedric Tillman. So Austin Watkins did get cut. They only ended up keeping 6 wide receivers. And I think this makes a ton of sense, right? Austin Watkins is somebody who could come back around on the practice squad potentially. If you cut David Bell, he's gone. If you cut Marquise Goodwin, he's gone, right? Nobody else on this list, whether people want to admit it or not, was going to be able to come back through waivers into the practice squad. Austin Watkins has a chance of coming back through the waivers and on the practice squad because ultimately he's an undrafted guy from 2020 who is a USFL, what do you call it? A vet, USFL vet. So that guy has a chance of coming back around. A 3rd round pick last year, that dude's getting picked up. Right? That dude's getting picked. If they didn't want to keep David Bell, and I think this is important to keep in mind, if the Browns didn't want to keep David Bell, they would have traded David Bell. right? Because you can still trade David Bell. There's probably somebody who likes David Bell that's willing to give up a 6 or something for him, right? So the second that no trade for David Bell happened, I felt like, okay, they must feel really good about David Bell's chance to make the roster. And I don't even think it was ever a question because David Bell was getting reps with the ones. You know, all these receivers right here that are listed on the 53-man roster: Elijah Moore, Amari Cooper, Marquise Goodwin, Donovan Peoples, Jones, David Bell, and Cedric Tillman. You've seen Deshaun Watson throw them the ball in practice. Everybody who didn't make the team at wide receiver are the guys you never saw Deshaun Watson throw the ball to in practice. So again, you got to pay attention to some of these tea leaves. It makes things a lot easier and more comprehensible and more predictable for you. David Njoku, Jordan Atkins, and Harrison Bryant made the team at tight end. No surprises there. Even though I thought Mitchell Payton was giving Harrison Bryant a little bit of a push because Harrison ain't really done nothing on camp. But I think they gave the nod to him. They'll probably try to get Mitchell Payton on the practice squad. Then at offensive line, Joe Bitonio, Jack Conklin, Wyatt Teller, Jedrick Wills III, and Ethan Posick are the starters. The depth pieces are Nick Harris, James Hudson, DeJuan Jones, and Luke Whippler. Yep. So they kept 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 offensive linemen. That makes sense. And honestly, you go down this list of offensive linemen, you feel good about every single one of them if they had to play. And that's a rare place to be in if you're the Cleveland Browns. And that's why you could trade your depth offensive line pieces for players who are going to make the roster. So the Browns did that with Pierre Strong, turned somebody who wasn't going to make the roster, maybe was going to be on the practice squad, into their running back 3. Yeah, but obviously you feel good about Joe Bitonio. Obviously you feel good about Jack Conklin. Obviously you feel good about Nick Harris. Well, not obvious with Nick Harris, but you feel fine about Nick Harris if he has to step in there at center. James Hudson, you feel fine about if he has to step in at any of the tackle positions. And DeJuan Jones, you feel really good about if he has to step in at right tackle. Ethan Posick, obviously, Wyatt Teller, obviously, Jed Wills, obviously, and Luke Whippler, you feel pretty good about if he has to step in at guard or center. So, yeah, offensively, this is who made the roster. This makes sense. I know some people are going to be upset that Austin Watkins did not make the roster, but you have to look at it logistically. If the Browns cut David Bell, they're going to only have Austin Watkins. If the Browns cut Austin Watkins, they could have David Bell and Austin Watkins. And I don't know why we're juxtaposing those two so much. But the second Marquise Goodwin got back and was active, that was it for Austin Watkins making the roster, because that's who Austin Watkins was actually competing with. David Bell was always going to be safe. Cedric Tillman, obviously going to be safe. Elijah Moore, Amari Cooper, obviously going to be safe. DPJ, obviously safe. Marquise Goodwin was the only one that was kind of hanging in the balance. The second he came back, the writing was on the wall for Austin Watkins. So I know there's a lot of people who are going to be disappointed with that, but ultimately, at the end of the day, I'd rather have every guy at wide receiver over Austin Watkins. I hope we get him on the practice squad, but ain't nothing to be too upset about. Let's look at the defensive roster that made the list. There were some surprises here, to be honest with you. And we'll start with defensive tackle. They got Zadarius Smith, Myles Garrett, Shelby Harris, Siaki Ika, not a surprise. Isaiah McGuire, not a surprise. Obo, not a surprise. Jordan Elliott, little bit of a surprise. Dalvin Tomlinson, not a surprise. Alex Wright, only a surprise that he made the 53, but no, only a surprise that he made the 53 because he had that surgery. So it seems like they're going to let him make the 53, put him on like IR. So he'll be out like the first 4 to 8 weeks, I think is what the IR rules are now. Put him on IR, a roster spot will fill up. They'll probably try to go back and get like a Maurice Hurst or something like that, because I think that he should probably be on this team. But Alex Wright makes the roster, but he's obviously going to be somebody to switch up on. We'll talk about Maurice Hurst not making the roster and Jordan Elliott making the roster in a second. Anthony Walker, Mahmoud Diabate, Tony Fields, Jordan K makes the roster. That's a little bit of a surprise. JOK makes the roster. That's not a surprise. Sione Takitaki. Matthew Adams. Don't think we've had a single conversation about him all camp, but he made the roster. I think the surprising thing here is that they kept so many linebackers. They kept 7 linebackers, and that's probably for special teams. Oh, Matthew Adams is a special teams guy, so that's not a surprise. I take that back. That's one of Bubba Ventron's guy. So yeah, that's not a surprise. But it's kind of a surprise that they kept 7. I would have thought they would have kept 6, but they must feel like Jordan K is a super integral part to what they want to do on special teams. Same thing with Matthew Adams. And if you look at the rest of the roster, I think they kept a lot of these guys on defense for special teams. Martin Emerson's not a special teamer, but Mike Ford is a special teamer. AJ Green, special teamer. Cameron Mitchell, probably a little bit of both. Same with AJ Green. Greg Newsome, not a special teamer. Denzel Ward, not a special teamer. Juan Thornhill will probably play some special teams, but not. He's obviously the starting safety, free safety for this team. Grant Delpit. Ronnie Hickman makes the team, and then Rodney McLeod, obvious, and then DeAnthony Bell. That's another special teams piece. So they prioritize special teams with a lot of the depth with the defense. They must feel really good about what they have on top. I'm surprised that they kept both Jordan K and Matthew Adams. I thought they would have picked between one of them. I'm kind of surprised that Mike Ford made the roster, but given that what Anthony Schwartz was so bad in camp that he couldn't they couldn't keep him on as the gunner or a punt returner. Like it was obvious that they were probably going to keep Mike Ford after a certain point. Now let's talk about Jordan Elliott making the roster while Maurice Hurst didn't, because I think Maurice Hurst had a much better camp in preseason than Jordan Elliott. Now, I don't know why they kept Jordan Elliott around. I don't see anything when I watch the games. And again, I can only watch the games, right? I can only really watch in the preseason from the broadcast angle. So I have a limited point of view on this, but I still have a point of view. Okay. The coaches, they see stuff in practice. They see stuff here and there. But I don't see that. If that heavily factored into their evaluation, and cool, whatever, but I am going off of what I saw, and I saw Jordan Elliott struggle in the Hall of Fame game. I saw him be the least impressive defensive lineman out of everybody all preseason. I don't know how he made the team. I don't know what the reasoning was behind it, and I hope to be surprised and proven wrong. But I do think that was a mistake. I think Maurice Hurst probably should have made this team over him. Everywhere else, I'm not really upset with any of the other cuts. And remember, the initial 53 is probably the least important 53 that we're going to hear, right? Once they finalize the game day rosters, I think that's Wednesday of game week. That's going to be when we know what the actual 53 is. We're going to revisit this topic there, but that's the 53 now. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Are there any guys who got cut that you feel questionable about? Are there guys who didn't get cut that you feel questionable about? Oh yeah, special teams, obviously Dustin Hopkins, Corey Bojo, and Charlie Hewitt. But are there any questions that they gave you about this whole 53-man roster cutting process? Are there things that you feel like you don't understand why they went in that direction? Let me know in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have a good night.